Okay, I think this is where we left off. So I mentioned that I bought a little bit of silver, but since I've made it pretty clear that I haven't been buying silver for the past 18 months now, I think that this needs a little bit of backstory. And I'm not going to make too big of a deal out of this. I'm not here to sound the charge, tell you to start buying. I'm just going to tell you where I'm at with it. Just point out that I'm coming into this with clear eyes. I think we're all clear by now that I'm not a silver fanatic. I just try to look at the whole picture rather than fall into that single outcome fantasy that's floating around. So maybe we start there with a simple observation. There is a phenomenon called the cocktail party effect. And that's basically just a fun name for selective hearing. The idea explains how your brain can tune into one thing and tune out others at the same time. It's like being able to hear a specific conversation in a crowded party, or maybe catching your name being said across the room. Your brain can tune into that one thing. And where am I going with this, right? Well, your brain can use that same concept of tuning into certain things and out of others to build its own reality. And that's called cognitive bias. Lots of fun words. Basically, you decide to hold on to the information that supports the reality that you like, and then you ignore the information that calls it into question. And all of us do this every day, but a good example of this is constructing a case around silver going to the moon. You have lots of reinforcement for that case here on YouTube. You don't even have to work at it. A lot of the YouTubers around here are just aggressively pushing that story. And that's really why I started making these videos. I just thought there was a lot of that reality building going on here, and lots of cognitive bias, and a lot of selective storytelling. And I promise this is going somewhere, but let me just finish this up. Now, I was buying or holding leading into that 2011 run on silver where silver price went up to $48, and then the 8-year or so consolidation period that followed its drop. So I didn't have a very high average cost because I bought pretty heavily in 2014, but I ended up holding the bag for a very long time. And that kind of bag holding will give you a little bit of perspective. It'll make you a little bit skeptical. So I definitely didn't go into last year's run-up with that cognitive bias that I'm talking about. Now, just for fun and context, a few of the bigger YouTubers at the time were talking about silver going to $400. This was early in 2020. It just felt dumb. Now, I made a video in March of 2020, and I made that video more or less in response to what I was hearing. Basically, I explained why I wasn't buying silver above $20. And I mentioned it a few other times through the year as well. In August, I mentioned that I sold at $28.50. I think I had $1.50 back from the local coin shop. So it was a $30 sale per ounce. I did okay. I said at the time that I didn't feel like we were going to go a lot higher than that. I also mentioned at the time what I did with the cash that I got from the silver. I traded some of it into gold. I bought some Ethereum at $375 and some Bitcoin at $17,500. And I guess I'll tell you why that matters here in a minute, but I did make a few other videos. I made a few more before each of the 2 silver squeeze efforts. I just recommended a little bit of caution, maybe even called out a message or two. And then I mentioned selling my remaining American Silver Eagles the day of the second squeeze. I got about $50 an ounce for each of those American Silver Eagles. Now, none of that information was popular at the time, but every one of those videos was well supported by good people. There was, though, just a lot of negative crap hitting the comments as well. And when you put yourself out there by dropping a video on YouTube, well, the negative stuff just kind of has a way of standing out a little bit more. And most of the negative stuff, it was just from people mansplaining how wrong I was, how I would be sorry, and how they couldn't wait to hear me having to admit it all, just waiting for me to eat that crow. Basic stuff. People wanted me to shut my fat, stupid mouth. You know, and mostly I did. I haven't talked a whole lot about silver. I will throw it out now and then when I think YouTube crosses a line into aggressive stupidity, but usually I just avoid the topic. I'm just not serious enough about stacking silver right now to want to argue with people online because I'm not being positive enough or because I haven't bought into that single outcome fantasy. So that's my backstory. Because I had that context to the 2011 run-up, I thought that I saw some patterns, maybe some clues, and it made me skeptical of the pump factory from the kids here on YouTube. That said, I've always seen a potential in silver, and I like the idea of having a little bit on hand. And I would like that idea even more if I didn't have gold. I've said this before, I prefer gold for a few reasons. The primary one here is just the lower premium. And I've mentioned this a few times now, but I get interested in silver again back at $20. And I know people have misinterpreted that as somehow me being negative about the metal, but I believe in cycles, and silver has cycles just like anything else. And this part is going to sound super obvious, but it is very difficult. You want to buy on the way down, not on the way up. And at $21.50, we're definitely on the way down. So if it was my plan to hold on to silver for a long period of time, this is when I would really start getting interested. Because I'm only moderately interested in silver at the moment, I want to get back to about 100 ounces. Well, I'm just kind of dipping my toes in. I bought a little bit, just under $23. I bought a little bit more today at $21.50. Now, the last video that I did on silver, I mentioned that I have specific preferences on what I buy. So I'm going to cover that quickly. It's pretty easy. I like American Silver Eagles because I live here in the United States. You swap that for your local coin if you aren't from here. And then I like 10-ounce silver bars. It's that easy. My favorite bars are from Sunshine Mint and the Royal Canadian Mint. The reason I like the Eagles is very simple. It's their popularity. That's why I was able to sell for $50 an ounce. It was actually a scramble. I had a lot of people who wanted to buy them for that. I almost felt bad. And then the reason that I like the 10-ounce bars is that they allow me to average out that premium. They obviously have a much lower premium than the American Silver Eagles, and they're still easy to sell. A kilo bar or a 100-ounce bar, it's just harder to move because you have fewer people willing to buy them. And that's it. I had all kinds of selling options for the Eagles. I sold most of them to private buyers. But foreign coins, they turned out to be pointless. That's just my experience with them. I bought Canadian Maple Leafs and every other foreign mint coin, but they've all ended up in the random bin when I've sold them to local dealers. They're just treated the same as a generic round. And speaking of generic rounds, I just don't like them because they require a specific buyer. And then purely for speculation, I'll give some of the haters an easy target. I have positions in ETFs. That's just the easiest way to sell if we ever do see a price spike. Now, I can see how it would be very hard to have a silver channel and only talk about two forms of silver. And I have noticed that people are all over the board on the kinds of silver that they buy. But beyond that boring factor, I think that comes from one of two things. It comes either from that self-constructed reality, thinking that all silver is going to the moon, so it just doesn't matter, there's no exit strategy, or it comes from a plan to flip it. So you see YouTubers unbox fancy stuff or weird stuff all the time. It used to not make sense to me until I then figured out that they were just flipping it on Instagram. And there's definitely nothing wrong with that, but you as a viewer should just know that that's what they're doing. Might not make sense to pick up those Morgan or Peace dollars at 400% premium if you're not also planning to flip them. And again, I get it. I just picked up a gold coin from the US Mint for 50% premium. It's a gorgeous coin, but it's not really one for stacking. So what I'm getting at here is that it just helps you to recognize whether your guy on YouTube has no plan because he thinks he's on a ride to the moon, or he has a very specific plan of flipping the hype coins for a quick profit. And then one final thing to watch out for is the manipulation story. Silver goes up or silver goes down, and a person giving predictions is either right or they're wrong. And you'll get the people who give the predictions with no real timing, and that's like the rain dance where you just dance until it rains, and then that means that you were right all along because it did rain. But if a person throws out price manipulation as part of their story, then they are just so caught up in their fantasy that they cannot admit that they were wrong. And I just don't know how you can ever make good decisions if you can't even admit your own mistakes and then learn from them. I'm happy enough to say that I screwed up a little bit in my first go at silver, so I'm a lot more cautious now. I'm careful to buy on the way down, I'm happy to sit out on the way up, and I'll even sell at the right opportunity. It feels like we're in a different part of the cycle now though, and I'm interested enough at the moment to actually make a few small purchases, and then I'm watching for that larger kick. If spot price falls below $20, I'm interested in picking up some more. I'd like to have some for a long hold. And then if we sank to a point where the total cost, including premium, was under $20, well then I would buy even more because I know that I would be able to sell some again down the road. If the price trends back up for silver, though, I'll just hang out on the sidelines, wait for it to come back down. I'm just more interested in gold, have a higher confidence in it going forward. And I really don't look to either metal for pure profit. There are just better investments available. Buying physical metals, you just lose far too much in premium to have it be something that's actually going to make you money. Unless you figured out how to flip those Wonder Woman coins on Instagram. Now, there are ways to do it, but again, mostly I'm into the physical metals as a savings. So I don't think I've mentioned what I bought yet, but what I grabbed was 2 10-ounce Royal Canadian Mint bars and then 10 American Silver Eagles. And if I was to average all of the purchases, the premium was about 18%. The average cost was about $25 an ounce. I think it was more like $25.50. So nothing to get too excited about. I don't know, what do you think? Let us know where you think the prices are going. I'm sure this video will be interpreted differently later this week if the prices go back up. That's pretty possible because we're going to start hearing the Fed talk about inflation. And if you don't mind, hit that like button while you're there. Make sure you're subscribed if you're into the topic of metals. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.